Hi, my name is Mark. So for those who are not aware, welcome to the latest installment of my YAIT series, You Ask, I Teach. I know, pretty boring, generic, and self-explanatory title, but as you can probably guess, and as the name implies, in this series I pretty much teach anything you guys leave in the comment section below. And if you want to leave something for me to talk about, or you want to have something explained, all you need to do is leave it in the comment section below with the hashtag YAIT. We've touched on a bunch of different topics till now. I'll leave the playlist with the full series right there. But basically we've done videos about kind of spicing up your 12-bar blues, adding some extra chords here and there, and figuring out how that stuff works. We took a look at this fusion soloing hack kind of Guthrie Govan style, we've talked about the modes, and in the last episode we took a look at the Hungarian major scale, which is pretty much your weirdest blues scale ever. In that video I showed you a couple of ways to apply that interesting but weird and outside sounding scale in ways that I think are easy to understand. And in that video a fan of the channel, Commander Kumar 2500, who's left a couple of comments on some of my other videos, left a comment asking, could you do a video explaining basic music theory for beginners, i.e. chord progressions in structure and triads and dyads, hashtag YAIT. And I actually left a reply on that comment because I've already made a video talking about most of those subjects. But since he took the time to leave a comment and laughed at little YAIT hashtag because it was asking for a video about basic music theory for beginners and stuff, I thought okay, let's meet in the middle and find a cool video to still talk about this. Kind of like if you're a beginner or even an advanced guitar player but you know nothing about theory, what theory do you actually need, or what theory can you grab to start out? If there's the theoretical concept, it's probably because it's useful in one way or another. But for somebody who's just starting out, or for somebody who just wants to play and kind of know what they're playing around, some things are more useful than others. There are people who've done videos about this, I'm not the first, and in fact what I'm going to tell you about is sort of the Martin Miller Tom Quayle method of explaining and visualizing things. But anyway, I've been rambling till now, let's just get to the video. What theory do you actually need and will end up using? But before I do, I just want to say, please subscribe to my channel. You're probably aware that YouTube's been acting a little bit weird lately. Even if you subscribe to the channel, those channels' videos may not show up in your subscription box. And even if you ring the little notification bell thingy below, you still really will not be notified of that channel's content. So if you want to stay tuned to my content, you really should subscribe and turn on all the notifications. And since that may or may not work, I highly suggest following me on social media. Not only do I post some exclusive stuff there, like improvised solos, jamming over backing tracks, and generally wherever I'm up to at the moment, but I always post there about my videos. Links for digital suspects like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter will be below, but in general at Mark Guitar. Oh, and since you're down there, please consider leaving a like, and perhaps share this video on social media. I highly appreciate it. But yeah, I guess now we can get straight into it. Okay, so getting started with the theory you actually need part. Since we don't all play the same stuff, and we don't all want to do the same thing with our guitar playing, I'll just do a less expanded version. Perhaps sometime later down the line, I'll do videos talking about what specific music theory do you need just for metal guitar, or just for blues guitar. If you guys think that's a good idea, perhaps leave a comment in the comment section below. And along the video I'll quickly mention some topics, and probably not dig too much deep into them, because one, I've done videos about them which you'll be able to check out in the card section right there, but also because we don't really want the video to be too long. Oh, and before we keep going, I'll just suppose you have a little bit of a basis in some of these more generic topics. Like I'll suppose you already know all of the notes around the fretboard with all of the sharps and flats, and I'll suppose you already know all of the basic chords like major chords and minor chords. But getting to the nitty-gritty part of this, what do I think that you actually need? So let's just get it out of the way. Scales. Learning scales is important, and every scale has its little flavor and adds a little bit of spice that, depending on the situation, you may want or not. But there are, in my opinion, two scales that are really, really important and you'll definitely end up using. One being the C major scale. And the other being D minor pentatonic. Let's do C minor pentatonic. Again, in my opinion, both of those scales are really important, even though sometimes guitar players say that they struggle breaking out of the box and that they get really stuck in that position. Let's be honest, at this point in time, everybody and their mother has done a video about breaking out of the pentatonic position. So that really shouldn't be a problem anymore. And the C major scale, well, that scale is important because most of our songs are in one way or another related to the major scale. They're either in some sort of key related to the major scale, Or even if we break out of that scale and we play in, I don't know, instead of C major we play in C harmonic minor, for instance. The way we can learn scales and apply scales is by comparing them to our regular major scale and comparing them to our minor pentatonic scale. Those will be the skeleton, the foundation of our process. But even if you say, oh, but how can I learn new scales and compare them to the other ones? Well, you do it intervallically. What does that mean? Well, you've probably heard people say, oh, I'm playing a C major 7 chord, or I'm playing a dominant 7 sharp 9 chord, and all of those fancy names. Everything those numbers mean is just, if we take a look again at our C major scale, we're starting out on C, so we call it the root of the scale, the C major scale, right? Well, to all of the notes, we give them a number. So C is 1, the root, D 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and so on and so forth. These little number things are what we call intervals. The way we make up chords is with stacked thirds. What does that mean? Well, we have our C major scale, right? To make a C major chord, we'll start with the C, then we'll grab its thirds. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's an E, so we already have a C and an E. And then we need another note, because to make a chord we need 3 notes. Now we'll grab the fifth. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's the G, that fifth note. So C, E, G. That makes up our C major chord. That's how we build chords in a scale. Every other note that we add in there is either an extension or a repetition. If we wanted to build the next chord in the C major scale, all we needed to do is grab the D and go to its third. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, the third of D would be an F. And grab the fifth of the D. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's the fifth, which is the A. D, F, A. It makes up for a D minor chord. D, F, down here, A. This is another D. This is another A. If you want to grab this one, this is another A. And that's how you find out the chords in the scale. And you can do that with any other scale you have. Just take every note, grab its third and fifth, and you get the chord related to that note in any scale you want. And if you have a chord progression, you can then find out in which key you are. But just by looking at, okay, these are the chords. Okay, in this case we're in G sharp major, because we have this chord, this chord, and this chord, and this chord. And those chords only appear in that scale. Again, I have videos talking about that which you can check out. And again, if you hear something like, oh, I'm playing a C major 7 chord. If you want to play that chord and you don't know how that chord goes, that's a C major chord with a 7th. Well, let's find the 7th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. Okay, this is the 7th. What note is this? Okay, this is a B. So all we need to do is play our C major chord, but add the B to it. There, C major 7. Or if you're playing in this position, C major chord, there's a C right here. We can replace it with a B just a half step below. So, C major 7 chord. And these are our standard intervals. The natural intervals, aka the major intervals. If you want to play the minor version, well, all you need to do is just move them a fret below. So if this is the second, if you want a minor second, you'll just move it a fret below. So if I told you, okay, just play a major scale but with a minor second, instead of playing, you would replace the second with the minor second. And if you have like, I don't know, like a C minor 7 chord or a D minor 7 chord, the process is the exact same. D minor 7, well, it's a D minor chord, but with a minor 7th, right? All you need to do is just find out the 7th. Since we're in D, we'll play the D major scale. Here's the 7th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, but this will be our major 7. If you want our minor 7, just move it a fret below. So minor chord with the minor 7th right here. D minor 7. Again, I'll try not to go into too much detail when talking about this sort of stuff, but other than major and minor, we have two other ones that aren't really as common as the major and minor ones, mostly because they are a little bit more dissonant and they function more as a way for resolution than a resolved chord. And that brings me to the next theoretical thing I think you should know about guitar, which is know your chords. And again, I mentioned in the beginning of the video, you should already know about your major chords and your minor chords. And as I mentioned just now, there are two other chord types, the augmented and diminished chords. And most of the pop and rock songs will mostly have major and minor chords. And sometimes we'll even play the simplified version, which are just power chords. But as you can sort of figure out by the name, if you augment something, you're trying to get more of something. You want the most of something, the major of something. I know it's a weird thought process, but basically what it means is that if you have a major chord sort of has that happy, bright characteristic. If you want to grab even more about it, you get the augmented chord. And trust me, the augmented chord doesn't really sound major and definitely doesn't sound happy. But the way it's related to the major chord is because it's built from the major chord. The augmented chord has as the major chord, other than the root of course, has a major third. So if you wanted to make an augmented chord, we'd have the C, we would have the E, but when it comes to the fifth, which in this case would be the G, right, for C major, for a C augmented we need to sharpen it. So instead of having a G, we have a G sharp. We have this G open here, this is a G sharp, just a fret up. If we play all of those three notes, we have a C augmented chord. To grab a diminished chord, it's the exact same thing. Here's your C minor chord. You keep the root, you keep the third, but you take the fifth and you diminish it. So you get less of it, you flatten it. And as I mentioned before, diminished chords and augmented chords will not really come up as often in most of your songs. Diminished chords sometimes yes, but augmented chords are more of a jazzy and in a way composer-ish thing. But it's best to know these chords for the next reason I'm going to talk about, which is sort of related to soloing and improvising. Many people say, oh, like if you have a diminished chord, you should probably learn the whole half-tone scale or the half-whole tone scale, because those are diminished scales and you'll need to learn those scales to improvise over diminished chords. Although that is important, I don't really think that's a beginner thing to learn. They say, okay, improvise something. C major, F major, G major. Sure, you can learn about scales and try to figure out which scale you can use and stuff, but if you know you're playing over a C major chord, you know the notes that make that chord are C, E, and G. So those notes will sound good. And the same thing with the F major chord, you can try and figure out which notes are in there, F, A, and C. So the notes that work with the F major chord are F, A, and C. And you do the same thing with G and whatever, but if you just play those notes, you'll almost sound kind of like a bass player trying to outline the chords. And it will sound a little bit boring, right? But if you think about it, a C major chord, these are the notes of the C major chord, right? C, E, and G. But all of the other notes in the C major scale are color notes. So all you need to do to improvise over a C major chord, play all of these notes along with the notes that sound good, the C, E, and G, but just focus more on the C, E, and G. Those are the important notes. You can notice that I didn't really focus too much on notes that were in the C, E, and G. If I was playing again licks like that, but then I would land on that D. When I went, you could feel the resolution. Landing on that D would be tensing up that chord. The same thing with all of the other notes. If I land on any other note other than C, E, and G. And depending on the situation, that may or may not be something you want to do. Oh, and another thing I think you should know about is that you should be comfortable with most positions. Again, because of the notes of the C major chord are C, E, and G, we have this position, we have this position, we have this position, which is still a C major chord, still has the notes E, G, and C, just on a different order. That's what we call an inversion. Here's another one, Here's another one. And all of these positions we're just starting on the 5th string. We have a bunch more different positions if we start out on different strings. Sure, they'll probably be similar to the other ones we have, just an octave up or lower, but I'll just give you a brief breakdown of many but not all of the positions of our C major chord. And as I mentioned before, this is important both for soloing and for chordal playing. It's not like I can only play the C minor pentatonic scale down here. I can also play it here. But unlike in a piano, where all of the keys you're pushing are in the same position, either on one side or the other, this position, even though it's similar, it's not exactly the same as when you play it down here. I can guarantee you that's most of the journey. Oh, and another thing I think you should know about, taking a look at what you're playing. For instance, this is one of the most popular guitar licks. And it's a C minor pentatonic lick. This would work well against a C minor chord. Why does that sound good against our C minor chord? We're starting on an F, bending it to a G. Well, the G is a note of our C minor chord. Here's the G. What are we playing next? This is another G and this is the C. So these are all notes of the C minor chord. So that's why that lick works, huh? So before we get to the outro, in my opinion, what theory do you really need to know and will end up using? I think you'll need to know all of the 4 chords, but especially major and minor ones. I think you'll need to know your major scale, your minor pentatonic scale, learn your intervals, and be thinking about the chord. And again, if you have a fancy chord, you know how to find that fancy chord, you can learn it in a bunch of different positions. And the same thing with soloing and licks, and I probably talked about some other things. Leave a comment in the comment section below if there's something theoretical that you think is important for a beginner, or that you use yourself. I like to see your guys' input on this. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope this video was helpful to you in any way possible, and if it was, please leave me a comment below. Do you have anything to add to this discussion? Did you agree? Did you not agree? Was there something I missed? Something I should have said? Don't forget, this is my YAIT series, where you guys can leave topics for me to talk about in the comment section below. Just leave whatever you want me to talk about with the hashtag YAIT. Then check out the other episodes of these series. I think you may enjoy them, and even if you already know about what we're talking about, there's always something new you can learn from these videos. If you're new to my content, I usually do guitar-related videos, mostly lessons and discussions. Other than this series, I sometimes take a look at a specific music theory concept and explain it so that you guys can learn from it. Other times composing related videos. Other times I just talk about technique or guitar related stuff like soloing and breaking out of the box. Sometimes I take a look at a specific clip from a guitar player that I think is interesting or a little bit different from what they usually play. I then transcribe it and break it down so that most of you can learn from it. Once again, I'll leave all of those playlists in the cards section right there, and on the annotations of the end screen in just a couple of seconds, so please stay tuned. But as you can see, there's already a little bit of a back catalog that you can check out, and I would really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. And if you like what I'm doing, again, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, comment, turn on all of the notifications. If you can, follow me on social media and share this video on social media. But yeah, I guess that's it. Cheers!